Now that my workbench is done, I want to spend some time moving in the tools and get really organized. I saved up for a couple of years and I just made a big purchase of tools, which I'm really excited about. So far, whenever I need wrenches or tools here in the barn, I got to work out of my pickups toolbox, which isn't the greatest. I think I'm going to start with my end wrenches, which I have stored in here for now, but they're the one thing that I want to have hanging on the wall in the back. I really like having a spot for each of them and I can see where they're all at. So I think I'm going to get them over on my welding table laid out and figure out how much room they need. God, it kills me when they put stickers on everything. The shiny metal's all gummed up. This one's not a sticker, so they do have the ability.
Got a set of doubles with every size starting at 1/4 inch and going all the way up to 1.5 inches. I also got a set of metric, but I decided I didn't need to go quite as large with them. The largest is 32 millimeters. Once I had everything spaced out, I added a ruler for scale, and I took a flat picture that I could import into V-carve and start drawing over the top of. I set it so the bottom of the wrenches would be flat, and the tops would be on a gradual curve as they got larger. I'm using a sheet of 10 gauge, which is a nice happy medium on being sturdy, but not too heavy. And it cuts really nice on the plasma table. I got it cleaned up with the wire brush on the grinder and drilled out the holes for pegs. I plug welded the pegs from the backside, so it'd be nice and clean from the front. I left the pegs a little long, so I could accurately cut them to length after they were welded. I heated up the tips and gave them a little bend.
It doesn't quite fit here. It's a little bigger than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to have to stand off from the wall a little bit so it gets over the window corner here. Just use a little hex nut for a spacer.
It's pretty satisfying getting all the wrenches hung for the first time.
I really like the ratcheting combination wrenches. I use them a ton, so I think I'll leave them on the outside. But I only went up to 1.1 inches in them. I don't think I'll need them any bigger than that. I'm wondering if I should have made the pegs angled so they would slide to the bottom automatically. I think it'll be okay, but maybe something I would have done different now. This side's going to be for metric. I don't use metric a ton, but I still thought it'd be worth getting kind of a basic set of wrenches for metric and sockets also. One thing I really like about using pegs for the end wrenches is that it's so easy to get more copies of the same size if you get like a swivel head or a ratcheting end wrench. And so with the pegs, you just throw them all in the same one. Versus if they have a spot in a drawer, you got to figure out where they're going to go. In the top drawer of my toolbox, I want to have all my sockets and my ratchets. And this is the one drawer I think that I'm going to build an insert for. I got a big piece of UHMW over here on the table, which was a chunk of money, but I think it'll hold up really well over time. And I know it mills really nice, and so I'm going to mill holes for all the sockets and spots for all the ratchets and everything. And I think this drawer will be used a lot, so it'll be really handy having it laid out really nicely. So I'm gonna get the calipers on each of the sockets and get the sizes, and then figure out a way to hold all the ratchets too. And since this was so expensive, I think I'm gonna do a couple test cuts on some cheap insulation foam, just to see how everything's looking, and hopefully I won't screw up the real piece when that comes.
I put together a spreadsheet with the outer diameters of the sockets, and then another row with the mill size, which had a 30 thousandths tolerance, which I thought would be about right for keeping them snug and in place, but not tight. Originally I was thinking all the sockets would have a 1/4 inch or so between them, but then I realized that if they're all shoved together and touching, it saved about 4 inches. Instead of having really thin material where they touch, I cut a channel through the middle, the same size as the router bit. I brought in the rest of the dimensions, and then did a test cut in some foam insulation.
Needs a few tweaks, but I think something like this is gonna work.
I was mostly wanting to check how the finger grab recesses felt, and it seemed like they would work well. I moved all the tools around, trying to find the best layout. All the ratchets and sockets ended up filling out this drawer just about perfectly. I grabbed another piece of foam to run the milling of the final layout and check the fit of each tool. With the extensions, I decided to do a little finger grab spot at the top, which worked better because I could squeeze them in tighter against each other and save some space. The ratchets are a little more spaced out, so I went with a recess slot in the middle that gave you a spot to grab them.
I'm so glad I did this test cut. There's just a couple little minor adjustments I needed to do, except for these deep 1/2 inch drive deep impact sockets. I don't know what I did, but they're just not fitting. I gotta rebuild this whole section here, and the other ones need to change too because they all line up. So need to make those changes, a couple little minor tweaks on some of the other things, and then I'll be good to go with the UHMW.
I'm sure this is the most time I have into a single V-carve file. Not only because of the time it took to draw all the shapes for the tools, but also all the tool pathing with different depths that was needed. It took a ton of time. I could only run so many simulations in the program. It's time for the real thing. I started off with a 90-degree V-bit to chamfer all the edges. Then I switched over to a 1/4 inch end mill to start milling out the material. UHMW tended to wrap around the bit a little bit, but it never seemed to cause any issues. When I blew away the chips, I saw that the edges weren't very clean. I learned there's a bit of a trick with the V-bit that worked better, and I've put together this fancy animation to explain it. The tip of the V-bit doesn't mill very well, and it leaves a lot of fuzzy crud, even after the end mill comes through. But if I move the V-bit inwards a 1/16 of an inch, and set it to go deeper a 1/16 of an inch, the chamfered edge is in the same spot, but it's milled with the middle of the bit, which only left a tiny bit of fuzz, which you could easily scrape away with your fingernail. It's easy to offset all the shapes in V-carve, and I just had to adjust the toolpath to go that same amount deeper. This is only going to work with a 90-degree V-bit, of course. It'd be different offsets if it was a 60-degree.
I want to get all the tools in here and do one last test fit. It's a lot easier to make any little changes that I might need to while still clamped down to the table, and I haven't cut out the final shape yet. Everything looks great except for the extensions. They're just a little too long. My extensions need an extension. And then these 5 pieces on the impacts I screwed up again somehow. I didn't get the right size. I should have done one more test piece. And so I'm going back and forth a little bit right now on whether to try to fix it or just leave it. And I think when I pull the drawer in and out, they're going to be tipping over, so I'm inclined to try to fix it. When I was picking up the ratchets, I realized I also forgot one of the finger recesses on this one ratchet here. Just gotta do that too.
It seems like on every project I do, there's a moment where I have to decide between trying to fix something and risk making it worse, or to leave it and to try to be okay with it. I've definitely regretted trying to fix things in the past, when I ended up making it worse. But I decided to go for it. I milled out the incorrect section and cut a replacement block the same size. I mixed a little epoxy and applied it to the inner walls, and then hammered in the replacement piece. It was a really nice fit, and I didn't think it was going to be very noticeable. I was feeling optimistic I made the right decision. Especially once it was milled out, it really blended in with everything else, and you barely saw it. Finally, I profiled the outer shape of the insert. UHMW chips don't clear out very well. I should have done a channel wider than the end mill, and had it do 2 passes, which would have worked a lot better. But it was done, and I thought it turned out pretty good. I got it slid in the drawer, and I just had to remember where everything went one last time.
The 1/2-inch drive deep sockets are the ones I use like 95% of the time. They're definitely my favorites. I love the deep sockets because you get your hands away from whatever you're wrenching on. Like if you slip, you're not gonna rack your knuckles. And the 1/2-inch drive size I think is just really nice to work with. I've never had these short stubby ratchets before. I think they'll be handy. They're swivel heads, but they lock in place. And I think they'll be handy for getting in tight spots. I'm not a huge fan of swivel heads that don't lock. This one's a big swivel head that doesn't lock, and I always feel like when you're reefing on them hard that they're gonna slip and go either direction. But I know they're handy for getting in awkward angles and stuff, so I'm sure I'll use it some. I wish this one was a locking head. It'd be really nice. And the big cherry on top is a nice torque wrench. To be honest, I wasn't even gonna get a torque wrench. I don't use them very often, but I had this empty space right here in the middle of the toolbox. I didn't know what to put there, and it just fit perfect for the torque wrench. So went ahead and got it, splurged on it, and kind of finishes the whole thing off, I think.
The last thing to do on the drawer insert was to 3D print some labels, which is where the sponsor of this video, Bamboo Labs, and their 3D printers come in.
So I've got zero experience 3D printing. I just finished setting it up, and I'm really excited to do my first test print, but then I realized I'm a dummy, and I ordered the filament without the spools that you need to put them on the machine. So I was bummed because it's gonna be another week until those come, but then I realized maybe I can just print my own. And sure enough, there are files online that you can download. And you can print your own spool holder. It was kind of my first 3D printer aha moment. But now that the spools are done, I can print something a little more fun as my true first test piece.
Kelly and I have been playing through Ticket to Ride Legacy in the evenings, and each of us have a pile of trains that I want to get organized. I drew up something in SketchUp, which imported right into the Bamboo Studio software. I set it to automatically change colors for the text, and hit print. It's so easy for me to talk highly about the Bamboo A1 3D printer, especially being an entry-level price 3D printer. It's really surprised me how easy it is to use. It's basically been plug and print for me.
Now I'm tempted to print better trains too.
I was expecting there to be a big learning curve, and there just was essentially none. I grabbed the socket size labels from the VCAR file, 3Dified them in SketchUp, and sent them to the A1. The machine moves so fast when it's printing, especially on the sparser infill middle layers. It just rips. To be honest, I had no idea the resolution you could get with a 3D printer. The text is super sharp, and giving the labels a 20 thousandths tolerance, just like I would with wood on the CNC table, gave it a perfect snug fit into the slots I'd milled into the UHMW.
Originally I was thinking I was gonna have to glue them. I brought out some super glue right here, but they're fitting so tight and snug, I don't think they need it. And I kind of like not gluing them so I could change them later on if I want to for any reason.
I'm really excited about adding the 3D printer to my tool collection, and I have some more prints coming up a little later in this project. With that, the socket drawer was done. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's going to work great keeping things organized. It's going to be so efficient to work out of. I think it also makes cleanup easier, grabbing the tools off the workbench and quickly throwing them in their spots in the drawer.
I'm gonna keep my pry bars in this drawer here, and also have a set of scrapers. Really like these pry bars, the adjustable heads. They work so great for getting that odd angle to get the leverage you need. Use them a lot.
I drew up a tray and cut it out on the CNC table. After I had it cleaned up, I folded up the sides. I cut slots on the underside of the walls to weld them, which kinda worked. It actually helped more with lining the walls than anything.
Not quite sure what I'm gonna use this space for yet. I'll just leave it open and see what I find to put in it. Actually, my handsaw fits perfect back there. These are really handy to have. I'll grab one of these saws more often than I'd think.
I decided to label all the drawers, at least while I get used to where everything is.
It's kind of crazy, but I'm nervous to throw these away. I don't think I'll ever use them again. But I think I'll still go ahead and throw them in the back of a drawer somewhere. Okay, rule for myself. If I haven't used these in 1 year, then they're going in the garbage can. I'm gonna do a drawer for safety stuff. Earplugs, gloves, and respirators. This drawer gets used quite a bit, so I'm gonna put it on the top. Hammer time. Put the ones I don't use as much in the back. This one didn't make the cut. I'm gonna do a drawer for all my electrical testers. Got a multimeter and a probe. These are super handy to have. Use them all the time. I keep it on my tool belt. You press the button and you can tell if the socket's hot or not. You can even hold it against wrapped wires and it still tells you. Just nice reassurance. And then this is a complete luxury, but it works really well. It goes in the outlet And then when you go over to the breaker box, you can scan and tell which circuit it's on. And it works on lights too. Complete luxury, but it's pretty awesome to have. I keep my wire cutters and my wire strippers in here too. I think that makes sense. Oh, and my electrical tape too. Actually, I think this drawer will work well for my big ratchet set. 3/4 inch drive. Wasn't as expensive as I thought it was going to be. The 1/2 inch drive and sockets are a lot more than this was. I think those ones are higher quality than these. These work well for like truck tire lugs and tractors. So I use them quite a bit. And I want to keep these in the kit because I'll come and grab the kit and then take it out to the field to work a lot of the times. So it works really well. Keep it in the carrying box. Got a nice big breaker bar. Ah, doesn't quite fit. Dang it. Guess it's not going in that drawer. Okay, it's going to the bottom instead. The days you're using the 3/4 inch drive set are the days that you come home sore. That's when you're wrenching on the big stuff. Got some star head and Allen head sockets that I didn't think warranted making the big drawer with all the sockets. And they didn't really have space for them either. These don't get used a ton. So I'm gonna keep them on the holders and put them in this drawer down here. I'll put a couple Allen wrench sets in there too with them. And then I also have these flare nut wrenches. Not sure when I'll use these. Not very often. So they'll go in the back of the drawer here. Okay, I'm going back on this already. Goodbye. This is gonna be the pneumatic tools drawer. Got a 1/2 inch impact gun. Really excited to have. I'll probably use the battery powered most of the time. But these are really nice to have too. And I'll keep my die grinder into here too. This thing tends to disappear on me. Nice set of bits to go with it. I'll keep the air tools lubricant in here as well. Now the real test of how to spell pneumatic. I think I'll do a drawer for my crescent wrenches and my vice grips. Kind of go together well. Nothing better than a good pair of vice grips. Vice grips are like Kleenex, where even the off-brand ones still get called vice grips. Actually, maybe crescent wrenches are the same thing. I think Crescent is a brand, right? So what I did was I ordered a mechanic's tool set, which is like 300 piece. Comes with lots of little odds and ends. And then I went through and figured out exactly what it had and added to it to get the tool set I needed. And so along with everything else comes with these things like telescoping mirrors and some battery terminal stuff. So there's a lot of things in there that I maybe wouldn't have ordered if it was just standalone, but they're kind of handy to have. A magnetic grabber. These actually can come in handy for grabbing things you drop. But I think I'll do one drawer that's just miscellaneous tools to throw all these things into. I'm not even sure what this is. I think it's a crimper of some sort. I don't think it's a chain breaker. Get a few sets of hex head and star head drivers. And originally I was thinking all of the screwdrivers would go in one of the drawers, but the more I think about it, I think it makes a lot more sense to hang these on the wall. They increase in size, and so you want to have them in order all the time. And they already have holes on them for hanging. I think it just really makes sense to stick them on a wall on a plate.
I don't worry about getting the pegs perfectly straight when I weld them. It's easier to straighten them afterwards. I didn't think I was going to use these very often, so I put them kind of high up out of the way.
So they're magnetic and they stick together. They don't hang straight. Gonna drive me nuts for at least a minute, then I'll forget about it. So the two drawers I've been saving for last are the pliers and the screwdrivers. That's because I'm still not quite sure the best way to do them. I just have so many screwdrivers, different odds and ends, and I did get a nice set of new screwdrivers. But screwdrivers kind of have a shorter lifespan, I think. It's pretty easy to break the tip off. And so I don't want to spend too much time milling out specific spots for them. And if I build holders for them, I think it's going to take up too much room. So I think I'm just going to do loose drawers for both the pliers and the screwdrivers. Not sure if that's the best, but I think that's what I'm going to go with. I use them all the time. I'm always going for these two drawers so they're going to be higher up. One thing I think I will do is build a divider that goes in here so I can kind of group them by different kinds.
I was making a big push to get the metal pieces into the powder coaters, so I welded up a couple other drawer dividers at the same time. Welding up the last of the metal pieces, I switched to taking everything down and took it in to get painted. While I was in getting painted, I switched back to cranking out some 3D prints.
One thing that's been on my to-do list for way too long is to get this plug from my welder fixed up. When the concrete cracked and went right through the box and broke the inner insert, and I haven't been able to find that piece. I've looked everywhere for it. I thought it'd be perfect for the 3D printer.
I pulled out the plug so I can get some measurements. This plug is right under my vise on my welding table, so slag and other metal pieces drop right down into it. It's really bad, and it's just dangerous being exposed. I drew up a piece in SketchUp. It's really cool. The Bamboo Slicer software automatically adds in supports for the areas in the model that needs it, which is designed to be easily removable when the prints are done. The supports are really thin and kind of like a scaffolding to support the base layer of the raised up area. I was excited when I got the notification that the print was done, and sure enough, the supports easily came out. I really want to thank Bamboo for sponsoring this video, but honestly, knowing what I know now about the printer, it's something I'd be buying on my own had it not been for the sponsorship. 3D printing is such a powerful capability to add to my workshop, and the Bamboo A1 is just so easy to use. Of course, I had to download and print a couple fun toys for the girls.
What is that?
Even if you don't have any 3D modeling experience, there are so many things you can download for free and print. And by the way, Roisin highly recommends the packaging the printer came in. She's been serving ice cream out of it all week.
Oh, thank you.
There's a link in the description to check out the Bamboo A1 and learn more about its features. I know I'll be using this thing a lot.
Got some more 3D printed labels for the wrenches hanging on the wall. Definitely a little quicker organizing the metric. I think the double-sided tape will hold up okay. The way the wrenches hang, that they don't touch it, they go over the top of it. All right, wrenches are done. I'm well hung now. All the drawer inserts needed this little section here to get around the locking mechanism on the drawer. Okay, I didn't put too much thought into it, but these are kind of nice screwdrivers here, less than nice screwdrivers here that I still want to keep. And over here I got some chisels and punches. Got a nice set of picks. If it focuses. These 6-in-1 screwdrivers are the ones I use all the time. They're my favorite. So handy. I'll just buy like 10 of them and scatter them everywhere. One other thing I gotta get figured out is all my bits. Not sure where to keep them. I might get a magnetic tray and then I can just toss them in there and that'll keep them in one place. This is a screwdriver that Carlisle does not make. So the Craftsman is making it in the box. Kind of doing the same thing with this drawer. Got the nice new set here and everything else on this side. I love this style of adjustable pliers. I use them a ton on the farm. Another thing I've grown to love is a really high quality heavy duty pair of shop scissors. Also have my PVC cutters in here and my shark bite clamp. Anything that does this motion is going in this drawer. Probably would have made sense just to do the dividers like I did the screwdrivers and the pliers for this drawer instead of doing the whole tray. It's pretty heavy. It'll work.
Switching over to the workbench drawers, I set up one for my spray paint. It's going to be nice to pull them out from the top and not have to dig through them to get the ones from the back. I set up another drawer for solvents and caulk.
All my polyurethanes and stains I'm going to put in the top cabinet up here. I don't use them very often, so I'm going to put them out of the way.
I set up a drawer for PVC fittings.
So many times one little PVC part can bring a whole project to a standstill. It takes like an hour to go into town and get back and everything. So it's gonna be great having some extras on hand. Just kind of the common ones that get used a lot. And a very important drawer for shop regs. These are actually repurposed from a hospital. You can tell because they're red. From blood. My grinder drawer.
And a drawer for my sanders. The metal divider is going to help keep the sandpapers organized by different grits.
It's another luxury, but these kinds of Allen wrenches are so nice to work with compared to these where you gotta dig them out of the little holder. I thought twice about sticking them up high. I've already been using these a lot, so it'd be crazy to put them out of reach. And I just saw I got those backwards. Dang it, I'll have to fix that. I really wanted to store the grinding wheels on the wall. It's a nice visual cue when I run out to remind me to get some in town.
And the last thing was a new air hose reel. No more coiling up the air hose.
All right, I think this project's done and I'm feeling pretty good about my organization. For some reason it's hard for me to stop and spend the time working on organization, which is just crazy because I know it pays off huge in the long run. I still have a few drawers that are empty, which I think is good because if everything was full right now, as soon as I got something else, I wouldn't have any place to put it. I've got a new project going on the table right over here already, and every single time I go for a tool, I open the drawer and it's exactly where it is and it just feels so good. It makes me wish I'd done this a long time ago. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'm excited to put these new tools to use.